WAXATERIA!
Guys, we have an absolutely amazing show for you today in the building. Robby Rockstar Vegas, and it's going to be a great show. We're going to be talking wrestling, wrestling cards, and everything in between. And we're going to start off by asking about his new Christmas single streaming everywhere on the planet right now. So let's get right into it.
Yeah, so 2 days ago, well, I don't know when this is going to air, but 2 days ago from when we're talking, I released my very first Christmas single. And I've always wanted to do this, and I've been a musician my whole life, and I've always said someday I'm going to put out a Christmas song. And so the opportunity came to do it, and we actually recorded it like tail end of September and got it pumped out, and it came out really great. I'm super proud of it. It's not your typical Christmas song. It's got a little bit of a rock edge to it. There's a cool little solo at the end of it and everything. And it's actually doing really well. And it came out the night after that Empire State Wrestling show that you were just talking about. So we did ESW on Friday. And then Saturday, I woke up to my Christmas song hitting 150 streaming platforms. And it was my second single of the year. So
Awesome, bro. Congrats. That's dope.
That's great,
thank you.
man.
Thank
A
you.
good couple of days. And how I saw the pics and stuff and some video, that show was slammed. Like it was capacity. What's the vibe like up there, bro? It looks insane.
It
That
is. It
Fox
really
Radio.
is. Especially those Riverwork shows, and they're usually live on IWTV, which we absolutely love. So not only do we have a packed house there right in front of us, but there's people watching the live stream, and there's always some amazing talent on the Empire State shows, and I can't. You saw the pictures and video, so I can't say enough how big these crowds are, and they're in the balcony and they're on the floor and they're loud and they're hot for wrestling. And they're seeing guys like Speedball Mike Bailey and Madman Fulton and Gringo Loco, and they can't get enough of it. And as far as the set that we're in, I was on the show. Buck Wild Tommy K was on the show. Invincible Vince Valor was on the show. He was in the main event, won the heavyweight title from Big Time Bill Collier in a casket match. The show was just off the charts. It was so fun, and everybody in the locker room has such a great vibe, and it's such a great place to be, and everybody's just happy to be there. And they even talked about it on Busted Open Radio. I mean, this show got a lot of eyes on it for sure.
Hey, Robbie, on the music side, who is Robbie Vegas? Who were you listening to in high school? What were your bands?
So for anybody who's just listening and not watching, Kiss for sure, because I've always Kiss was like my big thing. So when I first got into music as like a 4 or 5 year old kid, it was the Beatles and Kiss. By the time I got to high school, it was still Kiss, but then I was being heavily influenced by 80s hair metal bands, and I still am, and that's my favorite stuff. So if you ask me my favorite bands then and now, you're gonna hear Poison, Winger, Warrant, Vixen, White Snake, White Lion, like stuff like anything 80s hair metal I'm gonna listen to. Um, you know, Maybe not as much on the White Snake, but you know, they got
They had some
They had
the
a few
White
good
Snake had
joints
a
though.
couple of
Now on the other side of it, who were some of your inspirations on the wrestling side?
Number one will always be Shawn Michaels. Heartbreak Kid was my go-to from the time, when he first split from Marty Jannetty till now. I mean, just running NXT, I love the guy. I think he's absolutely fantastic. Also was really big into Bret Hart, Big Daddy Cool Diesel. I'm a big new generation guy. Not saying that I don't love the Attitude Era, because I absolutely do, but I was a really big new generation guy, and watching Shawn win the belt at WrestleMania 12 from Brett for the first time, I was probably like 8 years old, maybe nine, and I was like, I'm gonna be a wrestler someday.
Well, how about any awkward moments of you just coming in the game, or any moment that you could be like, oh, well, that was, I don't even know how that even happened.
Uh, an awkward moment that turned into a really cool moment was I was in a tag team match, and my opponents were Leo Rush and Velveteen Dream, and I had just met them a couple hours before, and this was pre WWE for both of them. And we went out to the ring, and I don't know what happened, and we just went balls to the wall. We didn't think about anything, talk about anything, discuss anything. And in my head, I was like, I don't know if this is going well or not. And by the time the match ended, there was a ton of people there, and we got a standing ovation. And I had, like, I don't know if I blanked or what, but in my mind, I did not know if we were having a good match or not. So I felt awkward. But afterwards, when everybody stood up and started giving us a standing O, I was like, that was pretty cool.
Now, as a musician, you probably could relate to the same thing. I know I can. When you go meet somebody in the studio that, either you admire or somebody connected you with, and you're doing music and you're like doing this, and it's like, what are we doing? And then all of a sudden the next day you like play it and you're like, yo, this is crazy. Like same kind of thing where you kind of like, because you don't know the person, you don't know if they're cool, and you're just kind of meeting up music wise, but you don't know what that music is gonna come. Probably is the same way in the ring where, hey, let's just see where this goes. But
Yeah.
for your sake, it was a good match and everything went well.
Yeah, sometimes there's just this unspoken chemistry with people, and I feel like I had that with Leo Rush, and you know, I had it with Fandango. The couple times that I shared a ring with Dango, same thing. I walked in and we barely spoke. We just knew that we were working each other, and we had a brief chat, and we went out there, and I came back through, and I was like, I hope that was okay, and he came up to me and he was like, good shit. And then, fast forward a couple years and we end up being a tag team for a show. And same thing, like we just kind of came in and we just gelled and everything just worked. And it's just an unexplainable chemistry that just certain guys you just click with.
Yeah. How did you get into the wrestling business?
By accident. Um, I was a musician first. I actually started playing live shows consistently when I was 14 years old. Um, I had no business being in any of these clubs or bars, but I was doing it anyways, and I was getting paid to do it. And so by the time I was 21, I had already been in the music business for 7 years, and just cutting records and doing the damn thing. And I was kind of getting burned out on it and broken promises and all this other stuff. And I was working out in the gym, and guy came up to me and he said, "You're pushing a lot of weight for somebody your size. You ever think about getting into professional wrestling?" And I was like, yeah, all the time. And then I recognized him as a local indie wrestler. And he was like, well, let me take you to a school. So he took me to this place, and I actually didn't like it. And I was like, something doesn't feel right here. And then I found Buffalo Championship Wrestling, which I did not know about. And I found Brian Jennings, who was trained by the legendary Les Thatcher and was in the same, class as John Moxley, LA Knight, the Blade of AEW. So I was like, okay, I'm in good hands here. And I trained under him. And a year after I started training, I got my first show, and I just kind of hit the ground running.
I always wanted to, oh, my fault, Joe. I always wanted to ask a wrestler, like that first time that you trained,
Mhm.
is it like very overwhelming? Do you think you could do it, or did it feel natural? Like that first time that you went through some real ring action?
Not for me. It was not. It didn't feel natural. It didn't come naturally. I had to work really hard. But I think part of that was because I was so intimidated, and I don't mean intimidated by, the trainers or anything like that. Because Brian's a great trainer, but I was more so intimidated by just being in the ring in general. So even if we were learning something simple, my first few weeks of classes, I was very intimidated, but then I started to get comfortable, and I started to get to know the guys, and I started to get to know the other students, and I did have a friend that started with me, and so that helped a little bit. And then once I got comfortable, then it was like, okay, maybe I can do this. And then once that confidence started coming, then it was, oh, okay, well, I think I could do this move, and I think I could do that move. So then when we start learning those, it started to come naturally then. But the first few months, I wouldn't call myself a natural at it at all.
Well, that's amazing because now you're teaching, which is really cool, right?
Yeah, and I didn't that I never thought I would, but I always like in the back of my mind I always wanted to because I like the aspect of like passing down knowledge. And so we have the Buffalo Wrestling Academy in Depew, New York, and it's myself and Vince Valor. And we have a really good, group of kids, and we do open tryouts once a year, sometimes twice, depending. And we've been very fortunate to find some really dedicated guys, and it really took off when Vince joined up, and he brought over Buck Wild, Tommy K, and Matt McCoy, and Darren Crow. And these guys now at this point are just phenomenal, and they're out there grinding and working every weekend. And they were all on the ESW show as well. They were all in my match, actually. But we have a great time there, but we also we make sure that we pump out respectful, good wrestlers or referees or managers because we don't just focus on wrestling. So
That's awesome, man. That's great to hear that you do that. Just passing the torch,
mhm.
paying it forward. People that taught you, you teach them. I mean, you can't ask for anything more. What in whatever field you're in, right? I mean,
Mhm.
it's great that it's wrestling, but what I wanted to ask you is there if you could wrestle any wrestler in history, with one guy that you wish you could get in the ring with.
It would still be Sean.
Okay.
Sean is like the dream match. But if I had to pick somebody that's still actively wrestling, Dolph Ziggler, Nick Namath, whatever you want to, whatever he's going by these days, is he's at the top of my list right now. I've been fortunate enough to work with a lot of big name guys, and he's one that's definitely on my radar.
Do you think that AEW is like a competition, like a legitimate competition, the way WCW was in the '90s?
I actually don't. I think WWE is too big of a juggernaut, especially right now. I think WWE is better than they've been in a very long time right now, and they're firing on all cylinders. And it's hard to compete with a company that's been around as long as WWE when AEW doesn't have that tenure just yet. Um, I think there's some extremely talented individuals at AEW, and I think the same thing about TNA and MLW and GCW, but on the bigger scale of things, I think WWE is just so far ahead of everything right now, especially with Triple H leading the charge. I feel like the storylines are just off the charts, and this whole bloodline thing that's going on right now is it's just such a big movement. And CM Punk being back there, um, yeah, I just and that's not to knock AEW because I never would. I don't want to knock any kind of wrestling, but it's just WWE's got the longevity right now.
I wanted to talk a little bit. I want to show your cards, man. If people haven't seen your cards, well, let's okay. Can you see them? There we
Oh
go.
yeah,
So these cards are both really awesome. The images are great. Thank you so much for being down with the set and helping out, with the set and getting us some guys because this is one of my favorite cards, man. This card is really cool. And I like
thank
both
you,
of
man.
them, but this the new, this year's set with the blue back and everything. We really like that set a lot. Not that we don't like the other one, but we feel like it evolved to
Mhm.
this one. And yeah, man, it's cool. Were you ever into like wrestling cards or any of that stuff, like wrestling figures or anything?
Yeah, both. Growing up, I used to collect all the wrestling trading cards that I could get my hands on, and I'm sure in a box in the basement somewhere they're still there. And I definitely had a lot of wrestling figures. I remember, one Christmas I got so many of them. It was like when they used to do the Bone Cruncher ones, and it was like Undertaker, Vader, Ahmed Johnson, Shawn Michaels, Bret Hart, Ultimate Warrior, British Bulldog. Like I had them all, and yeah, I was really big into that when I was a kid, and that was like those are my go-to things. Or put on my music, play with the wrestling action figures. It was always both. So, I mean, as much as things have changed, I guess they kind of stayed the same.
Yeah, that's cool, man. That's really cool. That is awesome, bro. Um, what's in the future for you as far as wrestling goes? What are the goals for you?
Well, I'm gonna hopefully keep doing the extra work that I've been doing with WWE, and hopefully, maybe even do it again for AEW. Who knows? Even TNA. I'm open to whatever in those realms because obviously we're all still climbing that hill. I would love to put some more names under my belt as far as people I've worked with on a bigger level. Um, Want to make a bigger impact at Empire State Wrestling. Um, I'm still the heavyweight champion at BCW. I'm looking to add different heavyweight titles for different companies or tag team titles or whatever I can get my hands on. Check off some more states that I haven't wrestled in yet. And I wrestle a lot up in Canada, and I'd like to say that I hold a title up there as well. So I could say that I've held titles in two countries. And, just wherever it takes me, man. Like I'm here for the ride. But I think the most important thing that I've been thinking about lately is that I hope my students do amazing things. I would rather them go out and say, "Hey, I did this," and I could say, "That's incredible that you came from this school and you did what you just did." Like I mentioned, Matt McCoy and Tommy K and Darren Crow, but we have a good crop of up and comers right now that I think are going to make a lot of waves. Cal Keaton and Groff and there's a few others, and I really am excited to see what they do.
Robbie, I wanted to ask you what's the best piece of advice you can give to a young wrestler coming out?
Oof. Well, I would say it's going to be harder than you think. If you think it's going to be hard, it's going to be harder than that. So you have a passion for this, and you cannot give up. It's going to hurt. It is extremely painful. I've seen too many guys come in that think it's just going to be a big trampoline and it's playtime with their buddies, and it's not. You're going to work hard, you're going to grind, and the biggest, most important thing you could do is get in the car, jump in the car, ask veterans questions, ask guys to watch your match, get critiqued, and go to shows. You will not get booked being a new wrestler just hoping somebody finds you. Get in the car, go to a show you're not booked on, always have your gear with you, be ready to work and show people what you can do. That's the only way. Work. Get in the car and go work.
For details, go to WAXATERIA. That's WAXATERIA.com.